Okay, so we are recording this. We appear to be live on Facebook. I will absolutely do my best to see who is joining us on Facebook in a moment. But if you are here, come and say hello, because I would love you to get involved in this conversation that I'm going to have with Hayley today. So welcome, Hayley. Thank you very much for doing this, for joining me, and to come and to have a bit of a chat really about the relationships that we have with our money. Oh, Emma is on Facebook. She can hear and see us both, so that is pretty good.
Awesome. Good.
And then we've got that feedback, that turnaround. So click the other bit and we'll be okay. Okay, so now that I know we're not getting feedback, let's get cracking. So thank you, Hayley, for coming and joining me. The reason that I wanted to bring you here and to join the group is because we've had many conversations. We've been lucky enough to spend some time in person together, but I think that these are two topics that we really need to be talking about more, not just individually, but as overlaps. And there are so many similarities between our relationships with food and our weight and our feelings of not being good enough and all of the stuff in our background and the way we behave around money. So let's talk about it. We've got a group here of over 900 women. Let's have a conversation. Let's get some of these things out in the open, and let's talk about what the alternative is to beating ourselves up and doing ourselves down all the time and going after, unsustainable quick fix stuff. Because goodness knows we've all been there, done that, spent a fortune on it, seen that it's not worked, and got back to the beginning and started again. So Emma says on Facebook, it all comes down to feeling worthy, doesn't it? Yeah, absolutely. Hayley, what do you say?
Feeling safe and feeling worthy. Our kind of safety is always at the very heart of all of this stuff. And interestingly, just a bit of my story really, I've had a disordered relationship with food and money. Interestingly, money was the adult version of my poor food relationship, I guess. My mum put me on my first diet when I was 13, albeit, and I think that's a really familiar story, I was born in 1971. So I worked with a lot of ladies sort of around my age, and I think the 70s were a real start of the diet culture, the 60s and the 70s. But I know my disordered food relationship started a lot younger. I can remember sneaking food at the age of 6. Some stuff happened in my childhood. My dad basically went abroad to work, which isn't a big thing when you think about it as an adult, but it was huge for me as a kid. So I know that at 6-year-old, my world changed from a safety perspective. My dad was the one who played with us. He was like the caring parent, if you like. My mum cared, but she struggled to show love in a conventional way. She showed love through food. And so my dad went abroad to work, and that was a real turning point for me in terms of my safety and stability in my world. And I know that I found comfort in food, and part of me was excited. It was exciting, but I would sneak food. I would take it upstairs and eat it because my mum showed love with food. I'd learned that food made me feel better. And that was kind of my start to my disordered relationship with food. And of course, what goes hand in hand in that is gaining weight. And when you gain weight, that then opens up another whole can of worms in terms of how you see yourself, how society sees you. So I know that I had my disordered eating relationship then fed into my money relationship. And I see this a lot with my clients when they start, not so much now because I work in a different way, but years ago I used to run diet groups, which was very much focused on restriction. The irony isn't lost on me. I actually used to run a meal replacement program for 10 years. And it was only as I started to train and I went through my psychotherapy training, I realised the impact of that. So don't shoot me for that one. It was kind of I thought I was helping people, but I started to notice that when ladies were losing weight and they weren't eating, what started to happen? They started to gain the credit cards, and they were like hiding things from their husbands. It's another protection, it's another comforter, isn't it? Whether it's food or whether it's money, you know, money is a strategy we use for soothing ourselves. You know, I've had a bankruptcy. You know, when I look through my life, there's definite patterns between my overeating, my overspending, my not eating, my not spending, and all intrinsically linked to my worth. So I think I answered your question in there, did I, Kim?
I think, I mean, this is going to be a topic that you and I can talk about for, you know, forever, you know, and the very fact that we're sharing a room when we go away next year is you know, we need to put boundaries on, you know, how long we bang on about food and money, because there are lots of things that we need to be talking about. But you know, you're right, it's so many different things that we attach. And you know, my relationship with food and weight and money goes back to a similar sort of time in the 70s. I'm a few months older than you, but only just. And yeah, my mum started restricting. She started going to diet clubs, but also it was a really hard time in the economy. We think we've got it tough now, but back in the 70s, it was really tough, with, you know, 3-day working weeks and only having electricity available at certain times of the day, and you know, all of that sort of thing. It was a different time, but we were living it and we didn't understand it. But what I did understand was that when my friends went to ballet lessons, and my mum said I couldn't go to ballet lessons because I was a bit like I'd be like a fairy elephant, you know, I took that in terms of, obviously, my weight. I was too fat to ever be a dancer. I was too fat to be a ballet dancer. But actually what it was that my mum couldn't afford those dance lessons. But she, you know, she felt that I wouldn't, you know, she needed to give me an answer as to that, but why can't I do it? But why can't I do it when everybody else does? And because she was trying to protect me from the fact that money was an issue for people, and she thought, well, I wouldn't understand it. Instead, she said that I would be like a fairy elephant and I wouldn't enjoy it. And that was the beginning of my image issue that then continued for so many years, and in such a destructive way, because you know, what I was doing, I was actually taking her insecurities, you know, the things that she didn't feel safe around, the image that she was trying to create, the things that she was trying to make up for. My dad went to work the same place that your dad did, and you know, it was a big deal at the time. You know, we didn't have instant communication. We didn't have the ability to just have a chat or send an email or send photographs or do FaceTime or anything like that. You had to write proper letters. You had to write letters that took 2 weeks to get there and then 2 weeks to get back again. And phone calls were only for special occasions, you know, birthdays or something like that. It's a difficult time.
When you start to link that into worth, I know for me, the clear message was money was more important than I was. And that was a very strong theme going through my life. Of course, you know, you've got to remember when you're 5, 6, 7 years old, you don't have adult capacity. So you don't have understanding we have now. Inner child work is a huge part of the work that I do with my clients to help them heal their food relationship. And inner child work is not about bashing our parents or blaming them. I have a very deep level of understanding and compassion for my parents now. I didn't have that when I was 6 years old. All I felt was the rejection, that constant like being at the bottom of the pile. Even when my dad was home and wasn't working abroad, he was a bricklayer, so he would often, I remember my mum and dad, the only thing I ever remember them arguing about was money. And so like when it was raining, my dad couldn't work, it would be stressful. As you say, it was really, really tough times, and food was like 50% of your salary then. So you can start, when you start to look at like the whole eat everything on your plate, you know, you could totally understand why we were getting messages like that. But even before that was part of why my dad went abroad to work, to make it more safe, like stable. But even when he was here, if he didn't work in the week, he'd go and work weekends. So he'd promised to take me to the park and then it wouldn't happen. So this constant like money was more important than I was. So when we start looking at worth, You know, that's how we start to, like, everyone will have their own individual story and their own individual links into why they think and feel the way that they do. A big one for food with me was my mum. I see it now. My mum worked full time. She also had OCD. I didn't know that at the time, but if she wasn't working, she was cleaning. So she would give me the tin of biscuits. If I was like pestering her for time, give me the tin of biscuits, sit me on the sofa, watch the telly, be a good girl. So this is how my patterns around. I can remember sitting there and eating the biscuits and feeling really rejected from mum. But at the same time, the biscuits made me feel good, and I'm watching the telly and I want to be a good girl. And again, you know, these really subtle links that we have to food and worth and value. And I can very much remember feeling, God, if my mum doesn't love me, who's ever going to love me?
And it's hard, isn't it? You know, it's and it's really deep. And as an adult, you know, we can look at some of these things, and if we were talking to our best friend, or you know, our you know, somebody else that we know, we could easily, you know, say all the right things, and you know, it would be so great if we could just then take on board our own advice and our own knowledge. You know, we've got all of that experience, we've got all of that knowledge. We now understand that it wasn't, you know, it was a sign of the times, you know, like you said about having to clear your plate because, you know, food was scarce. We were in a lack mindset because, you know, we were in that time. But it's like, how do we then have that conversation with ourselves, because we go round and round in our head. We know what we should do, we know what we ought to do, and we go out and we try and do it, and then, you know, instead we either do what I did, which was constantly be looking for the next big quick fix.
Yeah.
You know, I had liposuction on my thighs when I weighed about 9 stone, and of course, you know, it was expensive. It went on my credit card. It you know, it hurt. I had to keep it a secret because I was really ashamed and embarrassed about it. But also, of course, it didn't work. You know, it took away some of the fat that was there at that time, but it didn't address why I couldn't stop eating carrier bags full of biscuits and cake and, you know, all of that sort of thing, because my ex-husband's favorite phrase would still be shift your fat arse.
Yeah.
And yet all I'd done then was maxed a credit card out, another credit card out, in the pursuit of being accepted and being slim and being thin. And it's like, you know, there's so much
in there. One is like, when we understand something logically, why is that not enough to like achieve the change? That's like one thing which I'll talk about. And the other money that we spend on the quick fix, and that is one basic simple thing, is that we feel so fundamentally flawed with how we feel about ourselves that we are desperate and we will do anything. You know, our brains are designed to avoid pain and seek pleasure. So, you know, if we're living in a world where either external factors are contributing to us feeling bad about ourselves, normally it's the way we're talking to ourselves and the shit that we're putting ourselves through that are triggering that pain response. And so we're constantly trying to look for something that's going to make us feel better and quickly. And, you know, especially if you've started to exhaust the possibilities, you've tried every diet out there, that's when you then start to go for more extreme, because diets don't work. And that's what we prove to ourselves over and over again. So maybe I need to get the fat sucked out, right? You know, I've got a very interesting history around my own relationship, not just with weight loss, but with the surgery that I've had to remove skin, because, you know, yeah, I've lost weight. I'm a size 10, but you know, at least when I was fat, people knew what my body looked like naked. When you've lost a lot of weight, and then it was never about the weight, really. It was about my own dissatisfaction with my body and what was driving that. But the part about why, when we know this stuff logically, don't we then make the changes? That's because, like, the subconscious has no familiarity of that. You know, yes, we get it logically, but the subconscious is over there, like, doing what it does to protect us. So this is the work that I do. So the program I run is called If Diets Don't Work, What Does? So it's about understanding exactly that. Why is it when we get something consciously, do we then self-sabotage? Because that's what we say. We say, why do we sabotage? Actually, it's not sabotage, it's protection. It's your subconscious doing exactly what it thinks it should be doing. For me, I got to 19 stone at my heaviest. I wasn't 19 stone because I was greedy or lazy. I got there because that was my armor. It protected me. For me, it was about relationships. It meant that I didn't have to be in male relationships because I didn't trust them. My conscious mind wanted a relationship. Of course it did, because all of that stuff that we feel okay when somebody loves us, my subconscious was terrified. So I didn't get to 19 stone because I was lazy or greedy. It was my protection. I didn't know that. I was too busy over here trying to lose the weight. And no amount of me trying to lose the weight would have worked until I got the subconscious on board. So this is like, in answer to your question, we have to work aligned to how our subconscious is operating, and going on another restrictive diet actually creates more pain. Although the conscious mind tries to believe it's exciting and maybe this time will be the right one, but actually from a subconscious perspective, yet another diet, you can have similarities there around money. What you're doing is actually triggering that response in the subconscious to go into protection mode. So there's only a matter of time before you fall off the wagon, because the subconscious is doing what it thinks it should be doing. So we have to kind of get in there and tell the subconscious it doesn't need to be doing that anymore. You're not 7 anymore. You don't need to protect yourself in that way. And that's where, like, the psychotherapy stuff, the inner and outer child healing work that I do, but also the hypnotherapy stuff, starts to get in there and change those patterns at a subconscious level. But we're too busy blaming ourselves and telling ourselves we're a failure and reinforcing that we're like not good enough, that we just
we go again.
Yeah, we get caught up in that really messy cycle, don't we?
Absolutely. And it is, it's that cycle that is really hard to break, because the same with spending money. We spend money to make ourselves feel better after a stressful day, or an argument with the other half, or the kids playing us up, or whatever it might be. We spend money because we deserve it. We're too tired to do anything else. If we're already in this much debt, a little bit more isn't going to make any difference. If I've already binged, a little bit more is not going to make any difference. Another pack of club biscuits, not going to make any difference. So we sort of do that spending or that eating bit, and then the immediate benefit that we get very quickly wears off. The come down is quick. And whether that is buyer's remorse because we've spent money we shouldn't have done, or it goes against our goals and all the things we really want, or whether it's that sugar rush coming to an end, and that very big crash, whether it's a combination of both, because you've spent money to make yourself feel better on a carrier bag full of sweets and biscuits that you've then scoffed all in one go without them touching the sides. That come down is very, very rapid. And we recognize immediately that it hasn't worked. And so what do? We feel shit again. And so we just beat ourselves up and head straight to Google to look for the next, quick fix, or to tell ourselves that this time we really will like grapefruit, and we can manage on it for 3 days with some, a side dressing of apple cider vinegar. Yeah. And, we go through it all again, and we do this like constantly. So breaking that cycle is really, really hard to do in one sense, but in another it's actually really easy if we just allow ourselves to do it properly, and to do it in a way that perhaps goes against all the things that we're used to, the things that we can hear our mum saying, or the magazines, or whatever. So some people will say, well, diets do work, but if they do, then great, and that's fine. And if you're comfortable with that, then absolutely go with what works for you. But if you've been on this roller coaster, this perpetual cycle, and you've got every size of clothes in your wardrobe, from the smallest to the biggest, and then you still don't feel good in anything you wear, or how you feel when you look in the mirror, or you don't want to ask the question, do I look all right? Just in case you get the answer, well, maybe you could go and change, because what that's going to do next. It's going to set you off on the next mission to lose weight. So what is the alternative? You've said about the hypnotherapy and the work, but what does that actually look like and mean?
Well, I was talking about this today in some of my post material. and I think the title was about, do you want to know the real secret for releasing weight or losing pounds? I can't remember exactly it. And it's not about eat less and exercise. It is about the key, the core of all of this is about settling down our nervous system. Okay, and what I mean by that is weight is not just a physical thing, it's very much an emotional thing. And just as you were talking there around that cycle, that guilt and shame cycle, there's also the opposite side. And this is the same with money. So you absolutely have the eating to feel better, the spending to feel better, and then the hangover, the guilt and shame hangover that's after that. But we also, a bit like my weight was a protection. So it was linked into my beliefs about myself. And it's the same with money. You know, when we start looking at money as success and holding on to money, and if we're entitled to money, so you've got a much more deep rooted aspect to it as well. So money, weight is not just a physical thing, it's an emotional thing. And what drives like an overloaded nervous system or a stressed nervous system is environmental factors, what's going on external to us, but also what's going on internal to us, the way we speak to ourselves, the way we compare ourselves to others, how we're taking care of ourselves physically. And you've also got all the history, all our past experiences. So the first thing I do is I work with the nervous system. So I work through psychotherapy and hypnotherapy to settle the nervous system down. Because if you're trying to like make decisions from a stressed, overwhelmed nervous system, first of all, we all know about cortisol. Cortisol gives us cravings. It also stops us losing weight. Okay, so if you're on a diet to try and lose weight, for most people, dieting itself actually creates stress within the nervous system. So we're working counterintuitively. So the first thing is about settling the nervous system down, and there's different techniques that I use to help people just feel calmer. They may not even know they're stressed. A lot of people actually live in a world where chaos is their actual comfort zone. So it's actually when they're not stressed, they feel more stressed, because they're like, when they get bored, they can't tolerate the boredom. So we've created a world where we're constantly overloaded by phones, by even just like electric light. I've got fibromyalgia, so I spent a lot of time researching why I had fibromyalgia, and it's our lifestyle, you know. And I, you know, like you know, I'm not here to tell people how to live, but we have to take note of, we are always on. We're always like 24/7. And so that has an impact on our nervous system. So part of it is actually start calming down our nervous system so we can then think straight. We can actually, when we don't feel stressed, we can work from a very different place. All of us know what we should and shouldn't be eating, right? It's why we're not doing it. But often it also with food is diet cultures and diets have really taught us to not listen to our hunger cues and to override them and to not eat till we're satisfied. We ignore our hunger and then we eat till we're really full. So again, just how we eat and modern day eating is really unaligned to how we ought to be eating as humans, little and often, and eating for satisfaction and eating for pleasure. Oh my God, diet culture has so created the good and bad food list, hasn't it? And it's like, so I work on that stuff as well. So I do a lot of like calming the nervous system down, because once we feel calmer, that completely changes our relationship to ourselves and how we talk to ourselves. And that's magical.
So this, I've just written something down that came to me. A lot of the work that we do around the nervous system, you know, we can do ourselves. We can, you know, get in the cold shower. We can do our breathing. We can do some meditation. We can do some yoga. Yeah. And that's all really, really great. Yeah. However, I resisted for years the cold shower stuff. You know why? Because the magazines in the 80s used to tell me that if I had a cold shower on my cellulite thighs, then I would instantly look like Kate Moss. And of course, I would get in the shower every single day and blast the icy cold shower onto my, what I thought at the time were the biggest thighs in the world. Oh, what I would do to have those back now, of course. And of course, it didn't work. So, you know, there was another, just one strand of doing something because authority, society, your influencers, you know, thank goodness we didn't have Instagram then, you know, but they tell you that. And then when it doesn't work, you know, part of you rebels against it. So as soon as people started talking about having cold showers or ice baths for, you know, for helping to regulate your nervous system, my response was like, ain't gonna work. It's just, and I've been there, done that, ain't gonna work. And
Yep.
it's really sort of, when we think about all of these things that have happened, that have been said, that we've experienced one way or another, we really need to re-educate ourselves completely. Sort of, when I did my hypnotherapy training nearly 20 years ago, obviously dieting or weight loss was one of the things that we did. We sort of did hypno-slim type stuff, but it was all around eating less.
Yep.
It was simply about eating less, and if you brought a bit of chocolate to your mouth, then it would taste like cat poo or something, so that was the way that it worked. It didn't address the real reasons,
Right.
So even with those benefits, I still didn't really ever get that progress made until much later, because all of these layers from all of these different angles were just all of that.
That's the thing, we're always looking for somebody else to have the answers for us. That's the thing with diet culture. We've kind of we go along just following like what's the next best thing, and we completely detach from what actually works for us and trusting ourselves. Especially, this is the thing with the good and bad food list. It's one of the biggest challenges I have with clients, is to like get them to trust that they know when they're hungry, they know when they're full, that they can actually eat a couple of biscuits and they're not going to go headfirst into the whole packet. Avoiding doing that is not going to heal that part of us. We have to expose ourselves to these things, but in a way that's gentle, and it like gives us confidence to stretch and just try these things. We diet, we live in fear a lot of the time, and so people genuinely believe, I can't just have one glass of wine, I have to have the whole bottle. And these are the things that we're saying to ourselves. There's the obvious good and bad food list, but there's all these subtle little nuances that we have around food and alcohol that are driving so much of how we think and feel around food. Now, we'd be there forever if we were trying to work through all of that stuff. So yes, our past influences, yes, like diet culture influences, but the healing comes when we really start to connect with the inner child, that part of us, that emotional center. And I get clients drawing their inner child and sort of starting to connect and talk to it in a different way, because that's magical when you actually start to care for yourself in a way that's really quite deep rooted, not bubble bars and nails, that's all lovely stuff, but actually really getting down and dirty and raw and honest with what's going on in your life. That's when you start to heal from the inside out. What we try to do is heal from the outside in, thinking that if we lose weight, our internal world is gonna
It will feel so much better.
It does, don't get me wrong, I always feel better when I'm slimmer, but until I'd done the work on actually understanding why I was holding on to the weight and building my self-worth and my self-esteem and all of that, that my weight was up and down like a yo-yo. It's only since I've stabilized my internal world by treating myself better that my external world has come into line with that. And all diets do is actually shrink the body for however long. It doesn't actually make us deal with the shit job, the shit husband, the way we feel about ourselves, our relationships with our parents, whether they're still here or not here. It doesn't deal with that stuff. And it's only when we actually start to, this is what the calming of the nervous system is about, to actually settle down all of those protection layers that we've got going on. And it's really magical, because when we do that, actually all of a sudden our relationship with food just changes, because food is not the problem, it's a symptom. If we go upstream and actually find out what's driving the eating and the holding on to weight, because for me, my weight wasn't a food thing, it was a protection thing. So even when I went on a diet, I only lost so much amount of weight and then my weight would stabilize. I mean, so many people say to me, oh, that 14, I can get to 14 stone and then I can't get beyond.
Hit a plateau, stayed the same again at Weight Watchers.
How that is actually about calories in, calories out, or how much of that is about that's the point at which your body starts to feel unsafe.
And of course, when you get to those points, and anybody who's been on those diet club sort of roller coaster, will have had many times where you sort of stay the same for 2 or 3 weeks, and the the answer comes back, well, are you tracking everything? Or are you sure you're not eating something that you shouldn't be? You know, and I remember, you know, when I was great at Weight Watchers, was my absolute favorite, because it was in the old days of the point system, and being a numbers person, I can manipulate points brilliantly. So I was allowed 19 points, 19 points for my Weight Watchers day. So I could eat anything, no food is a sin. You can eat anything you like, as long as you don't go over your allocated points, which for me was 19. So their intention, I'm sure, is, giving them the benefit of the doubt, was to spread that 19 points throughout the day for a healthy breakfast, nutritious lunch, and a filling evening meal, even with some available, points for snacks. For me, though, it was 4 Mars bars and a green salad. And I could honestly turn up at Weight Watchers on the following Tuesday or Wednesday and say, but I didn't go over my points.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. I did my 19 points. I ate a heck of a lot of Mars bars and a bit of green salad, but I never went over my points. And I genuinely believed that I was doing the right thing, that I was having this healthy alternative. And of course I knew that I wasn't. But, we can do all of these things. How do we undo all of those as part of it?
Well, my business is called If Diets Don't Work, Then What Does? Not effing dieting, right? Restrictive diet. It's about building trust with ourselves. I would say every single person I work with knows, consciously knows what they should and shouldn't be eating. So they don't need, it's understanding why they're not doing that. And a big part of it is the restriction. Restriction drives overeating. So the more we restrict, the more we're going to overeat. It's as simple as that. What goes up must come down, right? So it's like we go, even if we don't think we're restricting, there is often restrictions. And even when we give ourselves permission to eat, quite often that's swiftly followed by a subconscious voice going, oh, you shouldn't have eaten that. So we're constantly
I'll
that.
be good tomorrow. I'll be good tomorrow. I'll get back on it tomorrow.
Well, just as you were talking about points, because also people would not eat their points. If they didn't eat their points, they'd lose more weight, or they'd save them up for the weekend. So they'd be really sparse with what they're eating in the week, which again, how you're not, there's no correlation between taking care of ourselves, and eating nutritionally and eating regularly. If you had a 5-year-old daughter, you would not do that to her. You would not restrict her calories all week and then laden her with loads of stuff at the weekend. Yet that's what we do to ourselves every single day. And that's why making that connection to the inner child and just starting to think, God, I've got this little girl inside me that needs feeding regularly, that needs nurturing and nourishing, not just physically, but emotionally and psychologically. Things start to change because we get that connection. We realize without judgment, we're doing, when you want to lose, I'm not anti-weight loss, I'm anti-diets and the restrictive approach that they take. I feel better when I'm slimmer. It's the approach that we take to get there. But it is also about understanding why we're holding on to that weight in the first place. That's the key. And for so many of us, it is a protection, whether it's a stone or 2 stone or 3 stone. For me, it was 8 stone. And I know even since being my heaviest, even a few years ago, I gained weight. And I know that was linked to not being happy at the time in my relationship. So instead of having the courage to say, look, sort yourself out or I'm out of here, because I've got anxious attachment. So when we start looking at attachment styles, I know that my subconscious gained weight, so I was happy, more comfortable not going out socially, and that I didn't have to confront and have that difficult conversation. So these are the things when you actually start to really delve into why are we carrying extra weight. Food is just the vehicle by which we either comfort ourselves or maintain that bigger body, and it's understanding what that's about. But we're so caught up over here thinking weight's the problem because I'm lazy or greedy, that's what we focus on. But for nearly every single person I work with, there's a reason. There's a reason. That little 5-year-old, 6-year-old me whose dad left when I was 6 years old, and my mum had no way of dealing with my emotions, just stored that stuff. I learned not to speak up. I learned not to cry. I learned to eat instead, and I learned not to trust men. And then fast forward 40 years and the battles and I've had to go through to understand that. It's complex, but you're right. The actual solution, when you're focusing in the right area, is actually quite simple.
And it is. And when I say simple in terms, in terms of it being, direct and to the point, because some of the diets that we follow or the eating plans are incredibly complex. Having to constantly read labels to make sure that you've not added a half gram of sugar in because you're doing keto, or checking a food list to make sure that that particular type of nut is or is not allowed. It is incredibly complex when you are following or trying to follow something, and even more so with the availability on the internet of all of those things. It used to be, do you go to Weight Watchers or Slimming World? Then it would be, if you go into Waterstones, you've got a whole load of different books available to you. Which one are you going to buy? Probably had them all. But now it's get online, and not only can you Google 1,000,001 different ways to lose weight, but you're now going to be thrown all of these sponsored ads with ridiculous adverts showing, 4 weeks ago they were like this, and after doing this one simple exercise they're this thin 3 weeks later, and their boobs are perky again, and all their skin has shrunk, and they don't have a single, I would have signed up to that. I would have done it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, nothing quick is going to change with that. Unfortunately, because of like our fat phobic society, there are slight shifts happening, but because there is so much like shame attached to being overweight, whether that's real or whether that's our own internal perception of ourselves, that is pain, isn't it? And so if we believe, even if it's at a cost to our health, or even in our minds we're going, it's probably not going to work, but I'm going to give it a go, we want to move away from that place of pain. One of the hardest things that I've had to navigate since me like ditching diet culture, and I gained weight initially because I did the whole permission to eat, and I'd lived my life like in this harsh, restrictive, looking at myself naked in the morning to disgust myself so I didn't eat, all of that stuff. So I've had to like unravel what has been a lifetime of like diet culture and diets. And you know what? It's hard because I've changed, but the world hasn't changed. And so as much as I try not to engage in like speak about diets unless I'm doing things like that, it's rife. And I have to, as a recovering like disordered eating person, because of what I do for a living, I hang out in different groups that trigger me personally, potentially, and I have to work on that constantly. But I also need to like hang out in those areas because it's my business. So I see that whole, and even clients I've worked with for a long time who get it 100%, they know it's not about eating less and exercising. They're still pulled into that stuff because it's intrinsic, isn't it? It's the power of diet culture. All any of us do is our own little bit to put a line in the sand and say, right, I'm not going to engage in that anymore. I'm going to like build trust within myself and actually start to understand what's the drivers there, what's the drivers for spending money, what's the driver for eating. And some of it is like, availability of food. We're designed to eat food when it's there, and unfortunately we live in a world of abundance, so it's blooming hard work to not have it. And all diets do is like create like the 5-year-old at a party that's not allowed to have the cake. The minute its back's turned, guess what's going to happen?
Yeah, absolutely. Or those awful days where we've been out with friends, and they're all choosing whatever they want off the menu, and we're sitting there trying to make the green salad starter, and make out that actually we're enjoying it. And then what do? We get home and we eat whatever we can get our hands on, and we would have been better just having the thing on the menu that we wanted in the first place, and enjoying it and saying, do you know what, that was pretty damn good. Because that you're going to eat that way every day.
And that is it, isn't it? That's the quest, if you like. That's the journey. But it's like how you transition years of judgments and labels and because it represents safety, doesn't it? All of those like boundaries we've put around food because we don't believe we can be trusted. And that fear that if you have that bit of gatto, you know, that you're going to go like a pufferfish and gain half a stone. We've got all of these really like absolute beliefs around food. And so that's why like exposure therapy and just stretching ourselves gently to actually do things a bit differently is so powerful, because actually we know what's right for us. We've just had that overridden. And of course, our food relationship is complicated because it's not just one thing. We've got diet culture, but we've also got our own internal beliefs. We've got real life and what's going on in our lives that's driving our relationship with food and eating. So it's complex. It's not just about the weight. It's about understanding the why we're eating, how we're eating. And so that's why diets don't work, because it needs a treatment plan. You know, anorexia, bulimia, have all got treatment plans. They're considered to be like mental health related, and the same with our food like disordered eating. It needs a treatment plan. It needs us to look at it and take it seriously and really understand what the drivers are for people.
And this is what I say about people's money. You know, we know that we need to spend less than we earn, and then it'd all be okay, because we would be fine. And that's the same as calories in, calories out, isn't it? If you spend more than you're bringing in, then you're going to end up with a problem. So we all know what we should do, but you know, putting that into a budget spreadsheet isn't going to work. The numbers might look as though they're correct, but the reality is, I think I've got unstable internet right now. Hopefully it's still coming through on Facebook. We'll carry on anyway. But the reality, you know, is that you need to look at all of those things that aren't on the spreadsheet. You know, the emotional spends are not on that spreadsheet. There's no category in that spreadsheet for had a shit day at work.
That's like your food diary, isn't it? Where you like only put on it the good stuff, and according to that, you should be like,
oh. But we do, and then we forget. We genuinely forget, because again, our default is to you know, put it in the past, forget about it. You know, don't talk about it. Out of sight, out of mind. But of course, it's not out of mind. It's just being layered down in our subconscious to, you know, to strengthen the belief that we already had. And you know, all of these things, you know, it's amazing when we can start to actually unpick them. The other really good thing, and again, I talk about this with money, is that it's not just us. We're building a stronger financial future. We're able to have better conversations with our children. And you know, I am not proud of the fact that my daughter became, you know, she inherited disordered eating. You know, I was bulimic, but she was anorexic for many years, because she'd been brought up around my disordered eating and my manipulation of food and my lies and, you know, my you know, stress around it. And so that was what she grew up knowing as normal. And you know, thankfully she's through that now, but only after, you know, some incredibly horrific years. And you know, so doing this work is not just for ourselves. You know, the work that we do and the understanding of why we behave in this way and respond in this way. I don't like the word behave, but why we respond in this way, so that we can have those better conversations and those better understandings, and make sure that we're not just passing our trauma and insecurity and patterns of behavior and ways of fixing them to the next generation. Because one thing we do know is the next generation will have even more food available, even more diet options available, even more insecurities, because social media platforms will be airbrushing people like nobody's business. And so if they're not healthy on the inside and aware that they, you know, that they are valued and all of those things from what we're giving them, how on earth are they going to have that healthy lifestyle? So, you know, the work that you're doing is incredible. Now, I know you're moving from sort of, well, you work one-to-one with people, which is great, and you know, but not everybody can manage to do one-to-one stuff. So you're developing this group program. Tell us a bit more about that and how people can get hold of you for either one-to-one or group.
I've worked with groups before, but I made a decision last year that I was only going to work one-to-one because I love forging those really deep connections, because it's quite an emotive topic, isn't it? You know, people are sharing parts of themselves that they've held huge shame about. But I have recently, I'm doing my advanced hypnotherapy, and I've recently incorporated that into my one-to-one sessions and getting really some beautiful results from that. So I've decided that I'm going to put it together in a group program. It's called Lightening the Load. It is a brand new program, but the work that I'm going to be doing within it is fully tried and tested. It's not like a beta program where it's all new. First of all, I want to see how it performs like in a group. It's not completely group. There's 4 sessions, and I'm also gifting a 5th session. 3 of the sessions will be done in a group, and there is a one-to-one session. So I'm going to be doing something which is dynamic hypnosis called a reframe, and that needs to be done on a one-to-one basis, because you're going to be talking back. All the others you don't need to talk back, and that's the beauty, because actually you'll be going through stuff in your own mind. There will be things you'll be doing, but there isn't a reliance on you having to talk. So I am bringing a new group program called Lightening the Load, and it's geared around, it's not weight loss, albeit you are likely to lose weight as a result of it. It's around weight release. So, for example, we'll be doing a lovely exercise that cuts ties with our emotional attachment to food. I do a lovely visualization around where I get you to meet the people or situations that have contributed towards your weight gain, and you actually stand tall and you actually release that part of you. It's really powerful, you know, when you start working with the subconscious. So over the 4 weeks I am going to do a little bit about how to eat, not what to eat. You know, it's not about what you shouldn't be eating, it's more about how to eat. So I will incorporate a little bit of that stuff. I wrote a journal last year called If Diets Don't Work, What Does? And it's a 100-page journal, which has got a journal part, but the front part of it is all around diet culture and how that influences. So I bring an element of that into the program as well. But fundamentally, it is 4 weeks of really a deep dive into hypnotherapy, into the subconscious mind, to actually start to change the beliefs and those deep-rooted habitual patterns that are going on. There will be some suggestions in there around weight loss. Our subconscious mind is the average age of 6 years old, so we do have to speak quite directly to the subconscious. So there is a little part in there. Part of each week will be around putting suggestions into the subconscious around eating regularly, eating for pleasure, also in getting you to visualize, you know, how you want to look in 6 months' time, but not just look. How do you want to feel? Calmer, relaxed, healthier, happier? That's not just about how we look physically. So yeah, really excited. And the reason why I'm doing it is to kind of make it more affordable for people as well. Not everyone can afford to work with me one-to-one, and I want to work with as many people and get them just feeling better about themselves and setting them off on a different path. My one-to-one program is called A Different Path. And I know when people come to work with me, they still have got weight loss in the back of their mind. That's what they want. Yeah, but that's not what we work on. My favorite quote is, let's stop pulling people out of the river. Let's go upstream and find out why they're falling in. And that's what the work that I do. You know, diets keep pulling us out of the river, doesn't it? But it doesn't get to the root. And that's what my work does, and that's why it's called A Different Path, because that's what it is. We don't look at what you're eating or food or exercise. We look at actually most of the people I work with, we don't really work on the food or weight. It will be their fear of showing up in their businesses, or it might be relationships. So often we find that actually the root cause is something that's not even about weight. So yeah. So interested in, I'll put a link below to my free group, If Diets Don't Work, What Does? Really important that you come into my world. We get to know each other. I like to talk to everyone before I work with them anyway, just to find out where they are on that journey. That's just how I do things. You know, I like to build those relationships, because a big part of the work I do is about building trust and building a safe, secure environment for people. So that's why I really work one-to-one, but I'm excited about bringing Lightening the Load.
I think that, you know, whether people can work one-to-one or try the new group, or even just to to have a little bit of a think around, why do I behave? What got me here? Sometimes that can be, quite phenomenal on its own. But whatever way people want to be working and dealing with this, I think that starting that conversation and thinking about things in a slightly different way is really, really important. So, please, if you are watching this, whether you're on replay, whether you are watching it live and you want to have a conversation, Hayley's group is fabulous. I am a member in there, and it's a great place just to feel safe. There is no judgment, there's no competition, there's nobody weighing you in or any of that sort of stuff. I don't even know what I weigh now. There's no battery in my scales. I know that I put on weight. I know what feels comfortable to wear. I also know that I want to be slightly slimmer than I am when I go to Ibiza in May. But that's all fine. It's not a competition. It's just about feeling good and enjoying life and not feeling judged, just the same as our money stuff. So go and join the group, have a conversation with Hayley. We've got people on the Facebook group who've sort of agreed with all of the things that you've said. Angela's, one of her daughters has got a really stressful job and she struggles with her weight, but she works out like mad and nothing changes, so she wonders whether that's cortisol related. Also reference to Paul McKenna's I Can Make You Thin. Yeah, absolutely, that's the old way of doing it. Of course, then it was taken over by hypno bands and all of that sort of stuff. But it's not like that now. We've learned an awful lot, and there are amazing people out here like Hayley who are able to help you implement it and understand yourself a little bit better, and be kind.
And just like to finish there, really, that was a real turning point for me. When I went into therapy, I was 19 stone at my heaviest. I'd just come out of a really disordered, abusive relationship, and I blamed myself. I thought if I didn't look like this, he wouldn't have treated me like that, and so I went on a 5-year quest to lose my weight, which I did. It was when I was slimmer that my insecurities peaked, and that was when I went into therapy, and just releasing myself from the blame and shame that I placed on myself, and understanding that my weight was actually about a protection, understanding it wasn't about greed or lacking willpower, which is what I believe to be true, was just so freeing when we actually can just soften all of that blame and shame stuff and really start to connect with ourselves and realize I've been in abusive relationships, but I abused myself the most. And when I could actually see that and take responsibility for it, not in a blaming way, but in a compassionate and kind way, that was when my life started to change, all areas of my life, not just my weight. And I don't do any of the counting stuff now, and that's hugely liberating. I don't weigh myself. I know I go summer to summer. If my summer clothes still fit me, I'm like, woo.
And we know, I was bulimic, so I spent many years on that whole binge and purge thing, which is like there was nothing fun about that. There was nothing nice. There was nothing, nothing positive about it really at all. I don't do that. I still have the occasional day where I stress eat, I comfort eat. We're all human, but also, we enjoy our food. We've been out and we've enjoyed brunch and we've enjoyed prosecco and we've enjoyed drinks, and you can enjoy that. You can enjoy living. You can enjoy the flavors. You can just do it and not beat yourself up, or then tell yourself you're going to have a restrictive day tomorrow to make up for it, or 3 restricted days, or hell, you've broken the cycle, so you might as well just go and buy 10 carry bags full of food again. You can get this balance right, and it feels so good when you do. For me, the turning point was when I met Phil. One of the first things he said was, come on, we're too old to faff around. What are the things that you're insecure about, or what are the things that are your like deal breakers or whatever? And I sort of made a bit of a joke about it, saying, oh well, I'm a girl, so obviously a bit worried about my weight, and the response that I got was not what I expected, and it was like, oh, it doesn't have to be like it always was. I was ready for the whole, well, you know, love, you could do with a little bit of, you know, whatever. And it was completely different. That safety suddenly came there. And, you know, yes, my weight has fluctuated for various reasons over that 12 years, but I'm happy. And that makes such a difference. And when, you know, when I choose to eat, I enjoy it. And when I have a stressy day, oh, it's just a stressy day. But most of the time, you know, I'm not going to beat myself up about it anymore. Once upon a time, it would have been very different, very destructive, and, you know, no fun at all. It made me no fun to be around. So, you know, I'm all for this, all for it.
Thing that, you know, sorry, what's your other half's name?
Phil.
You know, when you met Phil, he gave you so many permissions that you'd not previously had, you know, and part of the work I do is that teaching us to give that to us, you know, because it's so powerful. You know, the actual route to healing is in exactly that, is by accepting and giving ourselves permission that irrespective of what number on the scales or what size we are, we intrinsically know that we have value and we are important. And in doing that, we actually then release the weight, because instead of beating ourselves up, like I tried to hate myself slim for the best part of 30 years, it didn't work. So I'm trying a different way now.
I even remember, and I'm not proud of this, but this is the way your mind works, isn't it? When you're in that lifestyle. When my dad passed away, he passed away very suddenly. And one of my first thoughts was, well, if I don't lose weight now through the shock and the grief, then, you know, there must be something wrong. And it was like I was attaching, you know, my food and my weight and my, you know, my size. And again, I was probably only about 10.5 stone. I wasn't exactly obese, but I was attaching it to this massive event, this huge loss, to try and make that work in my favor. To go,
Yeah,
like, oh, well, maybe I lose my appetite.
That's a whole nother conversation, how for most of us, when we're losing weight or when we're slimmer, there's actually trauma attached to it. And that is like another reason why the subconscious resists us going there when we're starting. Yeah, there's lots of conversations, isn't there, that we can have around this.
Yeah, Angela says she thinks she's in a similar trauma recovery group as you, so it's such important work you're doing, and you're absolutely brilliant. So, yeah, I agree with that. Emma says your group is a very supportive place to be. Yeah, I love it. So thank you. Share your details, Hayley. You know, anybody who's watching this on replay who's got any questions for Hayley, go and join the group or ask them in here. We'll make sure that Hayley sees them, and, you know, be kind to yourself. I know we hear that so often nowadays, but it does start with us. It does. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how nice or how horrible other people are. It's not going to have any long-term effect. So, you know, thank you for sharing. Thank you for showing us that there is indeed that different way of doing things, and thank you for making it affordable as well for those people who are not in that position to spend lots of money. And, you know, we put our barriers up for so many reasons, and you're bringing so many of them down. And for that, I, as a recovering you know, disordered eater and the mother of a recovering disordered eater, you know, I'm truly grateful, and I'm going to get emotional around it now. So I'll stop this now and say thank you so much for all of your time, and you know, yeah, get in touch and keep up that fabulous work.
Thank you, Kim. All right.
I'm trying to stop the Facebook. I can't now. I've got myself into the Facebook group, and I can't find the way to come out of it. So just bear with me. If you're still watching, I'm still here. You can sing and dance amongst yourselves. Now I found the button that says stop live stream. Me and tech, you know, we're never going to be best buddies, but, you know, hey, we'll rub along nicely. See you later on Facebook. I think that's gone.
Brilliant.
Hopefully I stop recording as well. Stop recording. Yeah.